Hello and welcome to Planet Wakeza. My name is Sabrina Lamb. I'm the founder and CEO of World of Money and Wakeza. So the purpose and the mission of this broadcast is to just reinforce that money, business, philanthropy is all part of your culture. And as we all know, or should remind ourselves, that money will follow us from today until our great great grandchildren walk into the sunset. So tonight we have a very special guest. He is Evan Leaphart. He is the CEO of Kiddie Kredit. But before we get into that, I just want to remind you of a couple of things. One, there's a lot of information, financial information, stock market recommendation out in these social media streets. Just want to remind you to protect yourself. Who's heard of the word fiduciary? Fiduciary. Fiduciary means that someone has a legal duty to operate in your best interest so that you can have the best success particularly with regard to investing. And at World of Money, all of our teachers that teach children are licensed financial advisors. So just be very careful on who you accept information from, who do not have a legal duty to provide you with a fiduciary duty to provide you with the information that's going to make you financially successful. Maybe their intent is to make themselves successful financially. And there's nothing wrong with the exchange of money in business and so forth. But understand when it comes to money and advising, that we all should come to each other with clean hands. So World of Money is the leading provider of immersive financial education for children ages 7 to 18. But Wakeza is the space for adults, leading with financial education, soon with financial services. But remember on how you apply the information that you hear from, particularly as it relates to investing from these social media streets. Okay, so I'm going to introduce you to our very special guest, bring him in. He is the creator of Kiddie Kredit. Evan Leaphart is serious about teaching children and their families to have honest conversations about credit. Kiddie Kredit is a mobile chore tracking app designed to teach kids about the importance of financial literacy. He combines a passion of financial literacy and innovation with a commitment to solving real problems that help the community around him. He's also the founder of Black Men Talk Tech, which is an entrepreneurship collective that promotes collaboration between Black men and other members of the tech ecosystem. The mission of the organization is to create a cycle of access, insights, capital, and inclusion for Black men in tech. The community delivers social and economic impact, high quality, and substantive content. Welcome to Planet Wakeza, Evan.
Hello, hello. How are you? Thank you for the intro. I feel so special.
Well, you are special. So, could you just give us a little bit of your history? I'm always interested, our audience is always interested in the tipping point that you said, oh, I must create this tool for children to learn credit.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, you led here with the disclaimer, right? You're saying not a disclaimer, but just saying, hey, like, make sure you're mindful of who your source of your information is, right? And when I tell them the story about Kiddie Kredit, I say, hey, I'm not your Dave Ramsey, I'm not your Susie Orman, I'm not your budgetista, right? I am the person that turned 18, got a credit card right away, maxed it out, made my 20s incredibly difficult, and started to just look back on life, hindsight's 2020, and said, man, 95% of that was my fault, but there's a small sliver of that where I just didn't understand.
Mhm.
And if I'm going to do anything to give back, right, like I need to ensure that what happened to me doesn't happen to anybody else. And that was ultimately the story of Kiddie Kredit. It was just basically a person that messed up their own credit and said, "Hey, what happened to me? I don't want to have happen to the next generation."
Wow. Because some people will say, wow, that, look back and regret and don't move towards a solution. So tell us about, let's have a deeper dive for all the parents that are listening, and particularly those who will watch this on replay. Exactly how does Kiddie Kredit work?
Yep. So, in short, it is a chore tracking app that helps parents and organizations teach kids about credit through chores by incentivizing productivity and rewarding good behavior. So, how do we do it? We know there's a ton of chore tracking apps out there, but where we differ is we give your kid a quote unquote credit score. So, think of missed chores like missed payments, the longer you've had a chore, like the longer you've had a credit card. Anytime a kid's asking for something, hey mom, can I get this? Hey dad, can I get this? Think of it like an inquiry, right? We want to make it as if credit can be as simple for a kid to understand, then it can be simple for an adult to understand. And it's still an issue because 40% of parents don't, 40% of adults, excuse me, don't know what factors go into their own credit score. So it's still a prevalent problem in the country.
What is the biggest misconception that parents have, as well as their children, about credit?
Honestly, I think credit and debit get so intertwined,
Okay.
right? I have, I explain to parents, hey, we're teaching kids about credit, and they're like, oh yeah, that's great. I have a green light card, right, or things like that, where those are actual debit cards, and it's credit's its own conversation, right? And if you don't have that conversation early enough to where you think your debit card is your credit card, you're going to be really, really in for a surprise when you're trying to get a mortgage, or you're trying to get an auto loan, or trying to get a business loan. So I just want to give our youth the ability to have that head start and really be financially equipped to do things that they can ultimately leverage themselves out of the current situations that they're in, right? You think about how are we going to address the wealth gap in this country? The two biggest generators of wealth are through entrepreneurship and real estate,
Right.
right? And if you don't have startup capital, right, the biggest way that you can get access to startup capital for your business is through a loan. And if you're trying to obtain a mortgage because you can't buy in cash, like most of us can,
Hmm.
then you're going to need a good credit score for that mortgage. So it just credit is its own conversation, and we're here to amplify that.
So, credit is the parent, the umbrella for a lot of lessons under that umbrella. When parents download Kiddie Kredit, the app, which is available on the Google and Apple app stores, what is the first or lesson that children learn or can learn?
So it's really rooted in your habits, right? Like, well, we're not here to teach 9-year-olds about FICO. Ultimately, we just want them to have a parallel between good habits and a good credit score, right? So when that kid turns 18, they're like, oh man, I missed my car payment. That's like when I didn't make my bed that day,
Hmm.
right? So studies show that between the ages of 7 and 9 is where you actually form your habits around money. So, there's a lot of mandates right now around in high school and financial education, but if we start the conversation, then we're starting it too late.
Mhm.
So we're here to drive that conversation a little earlier.
Talk about the feedback from parents and young people, and even the organizations that you partner with.
Yeah, so it's been a ride. What really excites me is the parents that say, "Hey, we used your app, and now my kid is telling me more about credit than I knew."
Okay.
So that's been the part that's been very very encouraging. So it's really meant to be an experience around your day to day activities.
Okay. All right. So there are parents that are listening, and what should their what lesson? Let's say that Kiddie Credit didn't exist. It does. But what kind of conversations should they have with their children that are 7 or 17 right now, Evan?
Well, let's go on both ends of the spectrum. So if you're a 7-year-old, right, like we want you to just make your bed, clean your room, right? We want you to do the things that, ultimately make you a responsible young citizen. When you're 17, Kiddie Credit is intended for kids 12 and under, right? Now, what we're working on now is continuing that journey into the teen space. So, that's a totally different conversation because at that point, you're going to be equipped with some tangible financial products you can use. You probably have a bank account, you probably have a debit card. You may not have a credit card. If you do, you're an authorized user on one, and that spend is monitored heavily.
Mhm.
But next year, you're going to be 18 and you can make decisions for yourself. So it's ultimately going to, it just really depends on where you're at on the spectrum and how close are they to using, making financial decisions on their own. And side note too, I do apologize if there's a little bit of noise in the background. These headphones are here to cancel noise, but they don't necessarily always do the job. So just saying that out loud.
Thank you. No worries. I think what many people, particularly young people, forget is that when the clock ticks your year 18, that you have a legal duty, obligation to adhere to the laws of money, even if no one's taught you. It's a messed up world, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're still you can't say, well, no one taught me, so I shouldn't have to pay I shouldn't have to pay the high interest because my credit score is low. You're still legally obligated to adhere to the laws of money, and particularly as it relates to the laws of credit. Now, embedded, I understand that it's for the younger children, not for young adults, for example, and that you're going to expand that offering. But does it emphasize that? Does the conversations, this tool for parents and young people, does it emphasize I'm really responsible for this? I'm responsible for my chores, and I'm responsible for what happens as a result of my decisions.
Yeah, ultimately in the number itself, right? So right now, you do your chores, you earn reward points, which are called bamboo bucks. One thing that we're about to add in our feature set is not only so you can get rewards based off of how many bamboo bucks you've accumulated,
Mhm,
but there also is going to be a credit score requirement or the option for one, right? Like
mhm.
some things you may not necessarily want to have that. So like let's say you've accumulated all this money. I always give this example. I have a friend of mine who's a millionaire, and he called me one day, very frantic, like, Evan, I like, what's going on? Like, my credit score just plummeted. He's like, I pay all my bills on time. It doesn't make any sense. I'm like, well, you did something, right? Or somebody did something without your knowledge, right? So we
Mm-mm.
started going through it. He was like, man, I didn't do anything. The only thing I did was close my oldest credit card, and I was like, there you go. You've just destroyed your average age of accounts. So we just want kids to start to think from that lens, to say, man, I've been making my bed forever, and then all of a sudden now I say I'm not going to make my bed anymore. Now my score drops. We just want them to understand why, right? So ultimately, I was taught when I was younger that I need to learn to write in cursive because that's all I'm going to write as an adult. And then the wool was pulled over my eyes when I turned 18. I only use cursive to sign my name,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
this is not teaching your kids about cursive. This is teaching your kids how to write in plain English and just regular print. So that way, when they turn 18, they can use it as a real applicable skill.
So, in using Kiddie Kredit and for a child or a minor in a family, by understanding the laws of credit, particularly how it relates to behavior, how can that child's knowledge impact the entire family?
Man, I would love to see the day where they actually are, but where the kids are the smartest ones in the room, right? And saying,
Mhm.
Mom, don't do that, right? Like you need to make these payments on time. That 30-day payment latest is around the corner, right? Like just, it's, it's not, I think financial literacy, when we talk about the topic,
Mhm.
we break it down in these lessons, and right, we have a ton of them, right? So like, we make money not through the parents. We want this to be free for all families, but we charge organizations, right? And there's a lot of things that open up for you when you sign up through an organization, right? Like we have a learning journey of over 250 hours of content, meets multiple national financial literacy standards. But that's secondary to how we're educating. We are more than an educator, we are a habit building tool, right?
Mm.
So you can't go to somebody that goes to the gym, like that is trying to have a workout routine. You can't tell them about what they should be doing in the gym until you've created the habit for them to want to go to the gym in the first place, right? So ultimately, what we're saying is let's let these kids get into the routine of doing things on time and chores on time. And it doesn't have to be chores too, because there's a lot of parents too that are against chores. They're like they should just enjoy being a kid. Don't make their chore clean room or do dishes. Make their chore hug your mother, hug your brother, tell your father you love him, right? Like things that ultimately like you would want to see your kid do on a routine basis. When we start there, and then kids understand that through these things they can earn rewards, and then the kids say, okay, my rewards are are done, I mean, my chores are done. What can I do to get access to these rewards faster? It is only at that moment that now we can say, okay, so you want to go above and beyond? Here's some lessons for you that you can learn about that'll help you get to your goals faster, right?
Now, sorry, go ahead.
No, that was it.
Do you have, I'm sorry I didn't ask you this, but can we share the screen? Are you able to show us a demo of how it works?
Can I do that from here? I don't know. But I'm doing this on my I don't believe that I can. So I'm looking at it through here on my. Hold on, let me see. Camera.
At the bottom where it says present, do you have that? See that?
I do not.
You want to pop it in the chat and I can show it from my end.
Yeah, let me see if I have a link. 1 second.
And everyone that's watching, download Kiddie Kredit. That's credit with a K, from the app or Google Play stores. And the website is Kiddie Kredit, again with a K.com. And while Evan is seeing if we could see a demo of it, if anyone has any questions, please let us know. Any questions? Please share in the chat.
What I am going to send you here is, let's see.
And also let us know where you are dialing in from. And what was and I'm speaking to the audience, what was your first encounter with credit? I'm asking the audience.
For here, you may need to log in through Vimeo on this.
Okay. Here we go. There it is. All right, let me share my screen.
This is actually, it's an older version, but I can walk you through it a little bit so you can understand kind of how it is. The good thing is what you see here is significantly reduced from when you download it in the App Store, but I can at least kind of give you the overview of how it works so you can understand it, right? So.
Do you see it on the screen?
I do.
Okay, and I will play it.
Okay. We have Kiddie Kredit, which we're opening. It is going
you
to
can
go
mute it
directly
on
to the
there.
chore boards,
that way I can.
Where you can see the chores for your different kids.
Okay, I'll start over. Okay.
Alrighty. So when you come into the app, here you see like the list of chores that the kids have and the different kids. You can add a chore, how often you want something done, what kid it applies to, if you want it done monthly, weekly, etc. The next tab that you'll see from there is going to be the credit breakdown, where you get to see the kids' credit score and the amount of bamboo bucks that they have. One thing that's switched here is we've changed from 0 to 100, from 300 to 850 to match traditional credit scores. The next thing you'll see is the rewards that they're eligible for, and you can add you can add rewards. You can approve or deny chores as they've been completed. Then when you go over to the kids side of the app, the UI is going to change for a bit. You can see what chores the kids have completed. The kids will see ultimately what their credit score is and what causes it to break down. So they'll see that, hey, missed chores or missed payments, et cetera, et cetera. And then they'll get to understand like what their bamboo bucks balance is. So ultimately what we've changed it from what you're seeing there is, again, the UI has significant updates. So you'll be pleasantly surprised by that. Again, the score has changed, but then there's a learning module, which I'll do is.
One second. I'm bringing you back in.
Okay.
Yeah, you should be there.
Yeah, I think I see myself. One thing that what I'll do too is I will get you a video that you can share with everybody, and I'll do a walkthrough of everything, so that way anybody that's listening and wants to learn more about how to use it will understand how to instinctively use it. We're very proud of the platform. We recently announced last week our round of funding, so we raised a little over $1 million with the support of some VCs and the basketball
Fantastic.
fans in the house, Baron Davis and D Wade. So go Heat! We play tonight. Yeah, it's been a fun journey. We've learned a lot in the process, but there's a lot of work to do. We're thankful to the families that use the app. Hopefully some of you all download it, and we're thankful to our partners. What helps us keep the lights on is our partners and our business relationships, and we're fortunate to have a partnership and not just a partnership, but a long-standing client relationship with Equifax, where they actually now have an advertisement around their family plan within our app on the parent side.
That's what I was going to ask you as we prepare to wrap up, Evan. So you have a partnership with Equifax. What does that look like? How did they, what was the value you saw with Equifax and vice versa?
Yeah, so when we focused on our journey and we looked out, we wanted to make sure that we didn't get muddied in the debit conversation, the saving conversation, the investing conversation. We're here for credit. So who understands credit the most? That's the credit bureaus, that's the credit card companies, right? And that was essentially where we focused. So the Equifax relationship started a little over 2 years ago. I was just this young, naive founder, first-time tech founder, serial entrepreneur. And I said, how do you even start a relationship like that? So I copy and pasted my executive summary on Equifax.com. Next day, I got a response from the president of Equifax Foundation, said, I've been here 15 plus years, never seen anything like this, we should talk, right? Now that gentleman is now on our board of directors, and he's working over at Edward Jones. But we wanted to be very deliberate, intentional about who we align ourselves with. We have a partnership with Debt.com. We also have a partnership with Discover, and that's more so around the continuation of the journey, right? So there's Kiddie Kredit, which is for kids 12 and under, but what happens when you're a teen? If you're a 17-year-old, you don't want to use something named Kiddie, and that's ultimately what we're working on now. So I'm sorry for being a little hush about that, but we're really excited of what's to come. So I'll be back and tell you a little bit more about how we're addressing the teen space in the upcoming months.
Absolutely. So very happy to share with the world of money and the Waukeesa community and the world at large. As far as I'm aware, this is the first or only credit tool resource for children that I'm aware of.
It is the only chore tracking app that's focused on teaching about credit. I want to give credit to those that have tackled the same task. Right back in the day, there was an app called Credit Stacker, which was more of a gamified version, but it was just a game. We're more so trying to not just teach you through lessons, it's also through your daily activities, and to really get these kids to learn things that they retain. It has to be through a day-to-day habit, and there's no better way to do day-to-day habits in the majority of households than through chores.
Exactly. Well, everyone, we have been joined by the founder and CEO, visionary Kiddie Kredit, Mr. Evan Leaphart. Thank you so much for joining us here at Planet Waukeesa.
Thank you, and so much kudos to you for what you're doing. I did a lot ever since we made this announcement. A lot's been happening these past 2 weeks, but I always have time for you. I appreciate what you're doing. It was great seeing you a couple months back, and yes. Keep up the good work.
All righty, let's keep it going. Thank you so much, Evan, and thank you all for joining us for this broadcast. Bye-bye.